Londres.
David Cameron hasn't been getting a great press recently. Perhaps inevitably, a lot of pundits are viewing the whole of his premiership through the prism of the recent referendum. The ones who supported Leave blame him for some of the things he said during the campaign, and the ones who supported Remain blame him for having allowed the referendum in the first place. But I think history will take an altogether kinder view of a man who found Britain fallen and winded after the long Labour spell of government, and who helped our economy and our country back onto its feet. David Cameron is a very undoctrinaire man. He has an old-fashioned, pragmatic approach to politics. Some people of a more ideological bent can find that frustrating. But I think we should acknowledge that it's in keeping with the temper of the country. The electorate tend not to be especially consistent or especially ideological when it comes to political convictions. David Cameron is a great one for rolling up his sleeves and getting on with whatever the task in hand is. And the task in hand, when he became Prime Minister, was perhaps not the one he'd hoped it would be. All of the plans he'd evolved in opposition about big societies and modernisation and so on had to take second place to the immediate economic crisis. Now, it's just worth reminding ourselves of the condition of the country that he inherited in 2010. We had a deficit that was higher than that of Portugal and equivalent to that of Greece. We were in a terrible position, our credit exhausted, our reserves depleted, fractious, bitter, quarrelsome. And without making a great fuss about it, he took that economy with gradual changes and made it the strongest in Europe. He created more jobs in the UK, incredibly, during his time in office than in the whole of the Eurozone put together. Of course there were things that I disagreed with. Of course there were things that you disagreed with. Do you know what? There were probably even things that he disagreed with, because a Prime Minister doesn't have autocratic powers. But one thing that I will say, as someone who obviously was on the other side on the great issue of Europe, he always behaved like a gentleman. I never knew him to dissemble. I never knew him to behave shabbily or to try and do things in secret. He knew that I and he were on different sides. He didn't try and meet me halfway. He was just polite about the fact that we differed. And had he not been prepared to entrust the great issue of the European Union and our membership to the British electorate, we would still be members. All of us who celebrate the recovery of our independence should at least acknowledge and be sufficiently un-Shirlish to recognise that without David Cameron having conceded the referendum and stuck to his word when he promised it, this country would not now be looking forward to independence. When we've left the EU, when we've raised our eyes to those more global markets, when we have become the prosperous, low-tax, competitive, offshore success story that I know we will, then come back and look at David Cameron's record in the round. He inherited a country that was bankrupt, dishonoured and fearful. And he'll have left one that's confident, prosperous and independent.